I just picked these up from Pollinatives, one of my go-to native plant nurseries here in the San Antonio, Texas area. I've been a regular customer for a while now, and recently I got the chance to head out there with my camera to show y'all around. I spent some time walking the nursery with Donald Gerber, one of the owners, who not only knows his stuff, but has an incredible inventory of unique, interesting, and very versatile Texas native plants. Definitely some I know y'all haven't heard of before, but you'll get to see them in this video. If you happen to be in the area, check out Pollinatives. They'll offer you 10% off when you mention the code ENSEMBLETX at checkout. So let me show you why this place is such a gem.
Yeah, so we just got these Bluebonnet. They're pretty well mature at this point. The Bluebonnets are an annual, so they're going to die at the end of the season, but they make a lot of seeds. Seeds have like their own little defense mechanism. They're like tiny little rocks, so they won't all germinate every single year. You know, when you put out Bluebonnet seeds, don't get disappointed when you don't have a huge Bluebonnet field every single year. It's really great when we have a lot of rain. This year, not so much rain. So you got to kind of wait for the bumper crop of Bluebonnet. They're beautiful. It is not illegal to pick them. We want to have Bluebonnets in our state, so don't go trampling them for your photos. They really actually quite like a terrible soil. They would grow perfectly well in this decomposed granite path that we have in the store. They really like to be dry, and like I said, they're little rocky seeds. Some level of scarification if they get scratched on this hard gravel surface. But really that's their kind of defense, is to not bloom all at the same time every single year. Because if they were all to bloom and then there was like a really bad weather event where they weren't able to set seeds, that could be the end of that Bluebonnet population. Up front, like besides the Bluebonnets, we got four-nerve daisy, the Blackfoot daisy, and this Damianita, which is not exactly a daisy, but it does look like a daisy. And all of these are like really great for your like super hot, dry location. I tell people all the time, like, you got a place, if you have irrigation still, and you got a place where your sprinkler just doesn't hit, you know, like a dry corner that's sunny, these are great for them because they really don't like too much water. Mostly I tell people, like, water this when you install it and then don't care for it anymore. They thrive on neglect. Most people will kill this Blackfoot daisy by overwatering it. So they just want to get out there in the Texas sun and enjoy the hot days. Most people are coming in here like, I can't grow anything, because they're trying to grow these big box store plants. They're not suited for our climate and the temperatures and the blazing hot sun. But yeah, all three of these guys just out in the sun, soaking up the rays. This one has really fragrant foliage, so it smells quite nice. The deer don't eat any of them. Deer will eat anything new. So any new planting, it helps to protect, whether you spray it with some deer-resistant deer spray or put a cage or a little wire trash can or something on top of it, and list until it gets rooted. These are all of our trees. We do, again, only native to Texas trees. We had like a couple of 25-degree mornings, so these are Anacacho orchid trees. They were all like starting to leaf out just like this, and then bang, 25-degree morning, 3 days in a row. All these fresh little leaves ended up getting crispy, but they're back again. You know, it's probably like a 2 or 3 week delay to those things flowering. It's a spring bloomer, that orchid tree, but it's adapted. It's going to come back. It just got delayed on time. Some of the redbuds are blooming around town already. Mine are not, but they'll be along. It's a small tree, so a lot of times it's maybe considered like understory, which would mean some part shade, but it'll do the sun as well. Like it's fine. Like, it's a nice small tree, so it's good for your parkway, you know, the health strip or whatever you want to call it, that space between your sidewalk and the street. It's a nice small tree for there, so it's not going to get so big and start buckling your concrete and all that kind of jazz. So, and the redbud is more of an upright tree versus something like that Anacacho or some others that are more of a multi-trunk, so they can be too wide for a narrow space sometimes. So the redbud's a nice choice for a health strip type of thing, where you can get a nice tree with some pretty spring color. They grow decently fast, not like got a bad reputation for like being a slow grower like the mountain laurels. This is Missouri violet. A lot of people would consider this a weed in their lawn, but it's a nice, low growing, mounding. They make a ton of seeds. They'll multiply on their own. They grow pretty well in a pot. In fact, there was some in one of my citrus pots, and it just completely filled up the pot and made a real nice vase. Also in a pot with a bigger tree like that, it provides some shade for the soil, keeps the moisture in. Most people would look at that and see it in their yard and think it's a weed. Same with like some of these other ground covers. You know, we got frog fruit, we got horse herb. This is a weed in most people's lawn. People are always trying to get rid of this. But then I get people coming in saying, I have this great big oak tree with all this shade and nothing will grow under there. This will grow under your oak tree. You can walk on it, you can mow it, it'll stay green. It's not like evergreen year round. You know, a cold winter will make it a little crispy, but they'll come back. They spread by the seeds, so you get a nice mat of ground cover that's really low maintenance and will grow in the shade where a lot of other things will not grow. Yeah, there's two things here. Both of these are things you're not going to find in any, even of the independent nurseries in town. Carolina Wolfberry, Solanaceae, so same family as tomatoes. In fact, the fruit is edible, but like many tomato family things, the fruit is edible, but the leaves are poisonous. This is like the rain garden. If you have like a wet area, these can be completely inundated, like covered in water, not for long periods of time. But if there's like a low spot in your yard, it would love that, where it gets wet and it stays wet while the water comes. But also they can survive on very little water as well, like once established. It'll make these big arching stems like this. These stems will touch the ground. It'll root where it touches the ground and start again. So like super easy to propagate if you wanted more. Birds really love the fruit. It's got tiny, they're very tiny, like pea-sized little red fruits. You can, if you're out in your garden, you're like, oh, I got some fruit, let me try it. But mostly the birds will eat them before you probably even get to them. But also because it forms this big like arching thing, also a great shelter for insects and other animals, because there'll be like a big space under here when it's mature. Perfect shelter. This other one, this crag lily, this is not like listed endangered or anything, but it's certainly rare in the wild. It's a South Texas plant from Rio Grande Valley type of area. We'll send up a flower stalk like this with a yellow flower on a stalk. So for me, this is a great replacement for things like lorope and society garlic. It's got a similar kind of strappy look. It'll form a pretty decent sized bush, and then it has a long, big, tall stalk with pretty yellow flowers on it. I know the lorope is purple and the society garlic is blue, but I think the yellow pops more in the landscape than the blue flowers. Because it's a South Texas plant, it's probably going to die back in the winter, but they come back year after year and make it pretty green. It's very small, so it's good for the front of your planter bed, but then the flowers come up on quite tall stalk, so it has a nice impact. Not a lot of places sell these little 4-inch plants. I get a lot of customers, especially north of 1604, Edwards Plateau customers. It's rocky, right? You may be lucky if you got a couple of inches of topsoil. This is a great way to get some plants without having to dig holes, right? You don't have to dig a tiny little hole, chip away a little bit of rock or something, get it in there, maybe pack a little soil around it to get it in. Again, like this plant, the 400 daisy, likes to be super hot and dry, so it's perfect for those conditions. But yeah, like all of my Canyon Lake and North customers, they love to buy these little plants. They're more economical. You can get more for your money. You know, maybe you lose one, but at least you didn't spend $12 and have it die on you. Salvia greggii, they're tough as nails. So if you got some time, always, in my opinion, better to start with the small plant. It'll have lived in its location longer. It'll be healthier. You didn't have to pay so much money. But I still, some people want the instant impact of a large plant, so we can do that too. Yeah. But I always prefer the smaller plants. Really, the only reason to buy a big tree is if you really need like some instant impact, some screening. You got a bad neighbor that you don't want to see. But other than that, there's not a good reason in my mind to buy a huge tree. Yeah. Because the longer they're in these containers, the more susceptible they are to problems like root girdling. Yeah. The roots will just start circling in there, and once they start circling, they get used to that, and they won't go out as they should. And so if it's been in a pot for too long, it can lower the lifespan of the tree. Even if you plant it in the ground and it has a good time in the ground, that time in the pot could shorten its lifespan in the long run. Yeah, the bees really like these compact cherry. This is compact, but they also have a full-size one. It's evergreen. It'll grow pretty fast. These compact ones are still 10 to 15 feet. The non-compact one is going to be 20 feet plus. But this stayed green all winter. These have been here for a while. Blooms are not like conspicuous, but they do attract a lot of pollinators in the springtime. We got grasses, and grasses are like an underutilized landscape plant. You got grass for sun, you got grass for shade. This was super popular last year, this Gulf mealy grass. It gets this pretty pink flowers on it. There's grasses for dry areas, there's grasses for wet areas. Again, I think grass in general is kind of underused in our landscape. The shade, like this is probably our best shade grass. Inland sea oats, it's a great shade grass. It has a really pretty seed head that's kind of like chevrons, almost like a fish tail. They get brown in the winter time. Brown is a color, can like be part of your color palette in your landscape. And some of them, it's more brown, but some of these grasses turn like a very gold brown that can be quite pretty. Like this bushy blue stem, it's really more gold than brown. And that's a wet area grass. This is so rhizomatous. This is great for both a wet area and an erosion problem. Like this will stop erosion from happening. They're just like tons of roots in there. getting everything down. Mexican buckeye is about to bloom right now. It's a decent little piece right there with the pink flowers. They got a cool seed pod on them. The mountain laurels where I live are just blooming right now. Again, reputation as kind of a slower grower. And also we have some small ones which are going to take a little time. That's another example of that price versus time thing. Those little trees are $16. The 5-gallon tree is $40. The next bigger tree is like $120. The next bigger tree is like $400.
All right, y'all, I hope you enjoyed this quick early spring tour of Pollinatives. If you'd like to see more native plant nursery visits like this, definitely let me know in the comments. I know I can get back out there with Donald and Melanie soon. And I've got a few other great nursery partners I'd love to highlight as well. So if you're diving into Texas native plant landscaping, before you go, be sure to sign up for my newsletter at ensembletexas.com/grow. It's where I share plant guides, care tips, and everything I'm learning along the way. And don't miss the other entries in the Texas Nature Journal series. I'll link a few of my favorites for springtime for you to keep exploring.